Hey, it's that Deadeye guy. Well, another BlizzCon in the books, and I gotta say this year was a little bit of a step back from recent BlizzCons. J. Allen Brack is taking over as Blizzard's president from Mike Morhaime, and there was kind of an awkward handoff at the opening ceremony. Now, that wasn't all that was awkward about the opening event, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's get to the games. Heroes of the Storm have announced their first original champion, Orphea. She seems pretty powerful and has a high skill ceiling. I played several games on the floor, but I didn't have a chance to get a hold of her, but I did play against her. She's slippery and somewhat hard to kill despite being a ranged assassin, who are usually somewhat squishy if you can get to them. Her self-healing and mobility make it very hard to take her down. Her damage output seems pretty nasty as well. She was directly responsible for any team fights that we won or lost, be it their Orphea destroying us or our Orphea unable to keep up. I did think her visual design felt a little bit too League of Legends-y for me, but I'll have to hop on Heroes from home once she goes live. The Heroes team is also pushing out some gameplay and mechanics changes. They're changing up how catapults spawn with each creep wave, as well as how armor is stacked on heroes. Since exploiting armor stacking was becoming more and more popular, they decided to nip that mechanic in the bud before it sucked up too much of the meta. Other than that, they're adding some matchmaking improvements in that you can queue for the role that you want to play, and they'll be adding buyable boosts that help not just your own XP and gold gain, but that of your teammates as well. Nothing groundbreaking from Heroes this year, but still some nice changes. StarCraft had a pretty quiet year, and I think it's safe to say that it's in maintenance mode. StarCraft Remastered fully released, and StarCraft 2 chugging along in the esports scene, there isn't really much to add. The only major announcement was the inclusion of AZEROTH in the co-op commander lineup. Could be a good addition, but I didn't have a chance to play him, nor do I really care to as I play exclusively Terran. There was a pretty big event in that Serral took the world title in StarCraft 2. He's the first non-Korean to ever do it, defeating Stats in the WCS finals. Nice to see the country that turned the game into a global phenomenon kicked off the top of the mountain, albeit temporarily. Hopefully we can see players from other countries also vie for the top spot at BlizzCon next year. It is tiresome seeing one country dominate everyone every single year, though South Korea treats StarCraft much like Americans treat football, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised. The big announcement from Hearthstone was Rastakhan's Rumble, the final set for the year based on the Gurbashi Arena in WoW's Stranglethorn Vale. I had a chance to play it for a few rounds and it was actually pretty fun. I admit I only occasionally return to the game to see what's new, but what I saw on the show floor was pretty cool. The new mechanics are interesting and the flavor on the cards are always good to keep the game entertaining. I did enjoy that each class in this latest set has a unique theme or mechanic that builds off what is already in live play. I did notice that the Hearthstone Tavern wasn't set up this year. Even though I certainly don't count myself as a huge fan of the game, I still really enjoyed visiting that area each BlizzCon to grab a drink, listen to some live music, and enjoy the general atmosphere. This year, they just set up some tables near the Hearthstone demo area, and that was kind of disappointing. In fact, the whole bottom floor that Hearthstone occupied felt pretty empty. Overwatch definitely delivered this year with a new cinematic featuring Best Boy McCree and the new playable character, Ashe. The short movie delivers, playing off old spaghetti westerns but adding a little Blizzard character to it. I'm not sure what the deal is with the Omnic that McCree rescues, but she's clearly tied to Overwatch and probably has a connection with Athena, Overwatch's AI system. Ashe started the Deadlock gang of which McCree was a part of. Despite how she acted towards the gunslinger, she clearly still has some affection for him as she keeps a photo of the two of them on the speedometer of her bike. Being a neglected child from a very wealthy family, she rebelled hard and was always getting into trouble. Eventually she would turn to a life of crime, and it seems to have served her well. Ashe is the newest addition to the Overwatch roster. This character is everything I've been hoping for in the game. She sports a cowboy repeater main gun that serves as a nice balance between Widow's sniper rifle and McCree's revolver. In medium to close range it can be fired fairly rapidly from the hip, but you lose damage and accuracy. Look down the iron sights, and you can do some pretty nasty damage with a bit of zoom you get, especially with headshots. Her coach gun allows her to knock enemies back, as well as give her some mobility to get to hard to reach places. The dynamite will take a little practice to place correctly, but the dot it applies lasts a long time and will melt stragglers if they stray too far away from their healers, as well as punishing any enemy teams that group up too much. Finally, her ultimate calls in Bob, her Omnic colleague from the cinematic. He can really devastate teams if they aren't careful, and is excellent in throwing in some chaos to team fights. All in all, I love this character and cannot wait to play her in some live matches when there's not 5 or 6 of them on each team. She's likely to be my number 2 most favorite character, behind McCree. On the esports front, to no one's surprise, South Korea took the Overwatch World Cup, absolutely dominating China in the finals 3-0. In the same year that a non-Korean takes it all in StarCraft 2, one wonders if any other country will be able to take the title in Overwatch anytime soon. From how insane they looked this year, I really don't see it happening unless players from other countries take a major step forward in the near future. A big surprise for me this year was the announcement of WARCRAFT 3 REFORGED. They are giving Reign of Chaos the remastered treatment and putting out a modern rendition of the game, already up for pre-purchase on the Battle.net client. The announcement came with a remaster of the original opening cinematic, and man was it epic. I had a chance to play the iconic Calling of Stratholme level on the show floor. They did an amazing job capturing the feel of the original game. Units behave just how they did before, and they've clearly made a point to ensure that the only major changes were to the aesthetics, and not to mechanics. Unfortunately, as I was racing Mal'Ganis to murder my own people, he got hung up on the map and stopped trying to complete the objective, leaving me free to take my time working towards victory. I'm sure this was a minor bug that will get hashed out in the future, but I thought it was kind of funny because those sorts of bugs used to happen all the time in the original. Nice to see they're still around. I'm definitely picking this up, especially after seeing how much care they are taking in ensuring that it feels like Warcraft 3, but with a nice new coat of paint. I'm looking forward to seeing the modern version of the Arthas Illidan fight at the base of the Frozen Throne. We got quite a bit of information about what's coming in Battle for Azeroth. With 8.1 just around the corner, the devs seem to be wanting to focus on the behemoth of a patch that will be 8.2. We're getting multiple new continents and a new raid consisting of Azshara's Palace. There's also going to be heroic warfronts that will hopefully fix some of the major complaints with the warfronts as they stand today. The incursions we'll see in 8.1 based on the Legion invasions will continue into 8.2 and be an integral part of the story. I'll admit my passion for the new expansion has dropped quite a bit once I maxed out all the leveling content and started raiding on the regular. With all the content that is going to be coming out, I'm hoping the devs can really turn it around for me. This year was the first time we got to see WoW Classic in action, and boy did they nail it. It really does feel like EverQuest compared to the live version. Everything is much slower, and you have to be very careful how you approach encounters with mobs, especially if you're a masochist like me and play a warrior. I was worried that there would be way too many quality of life changes to make it truly feel like vanilla, but my worries were washed away. This is vanilla WoW, and it's pretty damn awesome. I still stand by the prediction I made way back in my MMO video that we'll have a steep drop-off in the player base a couple months after launch. The community that remains, however, will be far more tight-knit than anything that exists on live. And for the cherry on top of it all, Blizzard is giving access to Classic to anyone with an active WoW subscription. No additional purchase required. I was a little worried that Diablo 3 might be catching Skyrim syndrome and that they're going to release it on every conceivable platform, slap a premium price tag on it, and pretend it's a fresh release. While Switch Diablo 3 is indeed full price, I'd say it's worth it for what you get. As someone who travels quite a bit for business, being able to slay demons on the plane or in my hotel room would be great to have. I made sure to try it on one of the Switch demo stations they had on the floor, and the game actually translates over pretty well. I'd say it's probably not worth full price for those who don't travel often, but for folks like me, it's a great pickup. Okay, so I was sitting in the audience, and the moment Wyatt said the word mobile, my heart sank. But only a little. We knew they weren't announcing Diablo 4 this year. That's what the pre-con blue post was about. What we got instead was a massively overhyped announcement for a Chinese mobile ARPG with a Diablo reskin, and it's not even being developed by Blizzard. It's not so much the fact that there is a mobile Diablo game coming out that upset longtime fans like myself, but rather how absurd the announcement was handled. This will stand as one of the biggest PR blunders in gaming history, and there's a team of business dev folks at Blizzard who are to blame for it. The demo on the show floor was about as simplistic as I expected out of a mobile title, but it looked decent for what it is. It's okay, but it's not a real Diablo game to me. I'm not going to go into more depth because I'm planning a full video on this announcement, addressing the decision to announce it how they did, the community response, and how the media reacted to the backlash. Stay tuned for that. After the show we got our musical guests, and I gotta say I don't feel bad for skipping them as I did last year when Muse was playing. Rather than get one big headliner, Blizzard brought in 3 smaller musical acts. Train was set up on the main stage, and elsewhere there was Lindsey Sterling on the violin, and Hodor throwing out some sick beats. Train immediately drew my hatred for attempting Don't Stop Believing without the benefit of being Journey, and then following up later with Under Pressure by Queen. Lindsey Sterling was very talented from what I saw on the screens by the Heroes demo area, but I have to admit, her act isn't really my cup of tea. I recall her stage being jam-packed with fans though. Hodor I didn't even see anywhere on the screens when the musical acts were playing, but I'm sure it was pretty good as well. Post-show, the typical party shenanigans ensued. People packed into the Hilton just outside the front doors and proceeded to get inebriated. Fans and Blizzard employees alike commingled and made merry as the evening drew to a close. I decided to stay in a slightly cheaper hotel a couple of blocks away this year, so once I got a survey of the festivities, I decided it was time to grab a quick bite and head back to the room to catch up on some of the panels that I'd missed. This year's BlizzCon was a bit lacking compared to recent years. You definitely noticed some things missing from around the floor, and it felt like the budget was cut a bit for 2018. Still, I had a great time as I usually do, and will definitely be attending next year. The top story from the convention was the botching of the Diablo Immortal announcement, which is still a hot topic in the gaming community several days later.
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys don't have phones, right?
It'll be interesting to see what Blizzard does in response to the cataclysmically bad reaction from the community. In the coming weeks, I'm going to address this issue in particular as Diablo is near and dear to my heart. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, why not hit that thumbs up button? And if you like my content, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe. Until next time.